Welcome to Jesus and Tim in Las Vegas. I'm not Jesus, I'm Tim, but I'd like you to join me the next 26 minutes. You're going to be blessed, and you be praying, won't you, that God will touch the folks that tune in. Welcome to Jesus and Tim in Las Vegas.
Well, welcome to Jesus and Tim in Las Vegas. Jesus is here, but Tim is out of town. How about that? I'm Pastor Bill Walker, and it's great to be here filling in for Tim today. It's a great day here at the studio, and you know, the great thing right here in where I am in the studio, it's an hour earlier because they didn't set the clock ahead. Oh, well. I like having an extra, see, I get an extra hour coming in here today. We got a great program for you today. Before we get started, I'd like to reintroduce myself. I am the pastor of the Four Seasons Church here in Las Vegas, and our location is 2980 South Durango Drive. That's between Desert Inn and Sahara on Durango, of course, about midway between those two intersections, and we're only like half a block away from Brewster's Ice Cream. Oh, boy, now that is a place to go right after the service or before the service. But anyway, we'd love to have you anytime. We have services tonight. We have a Bible study at 6:30. And on Sunday mornings, we meet at 10:30 a.m. So we would love to have you join us sometime for service. Also, I would like to let the men in the area know that they are having a men's conference at ICLV Church here in Las Vegas. It's welcome to. It's open to men all over the city who love Jesus, and it'll be this Friday night, starting at 5:00 for activities in the parking lot, and then it will the program will begin at 6:00, and it'll just be a gathering of men who love Jesus, and we're going to have a great time. So if you're open on Friday night, we'd love to see you at International Church of Las Vegas. It's ICLV, and you can look them up and come and join us. Well, today I'm thrilled to have a gentleman by the name of David W. Daniels, who wrote a book called Did the Catholic Church Give Us the Bible? Oh, please don't tell me that they didn't. No, I know better. So, David, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Pastor Bill. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. As I have the book, I have your updated version of the book in my hand, and it is filled with great chick illustrations. And I'll tell you, it's well written and very scholarly. The first question I'd like to ask, and then I'll just let you take over and go wherever you feel the Lord is leading you to explain the book. But is this book primarily aimed at Catholics, or is it will it benefit evangelicals, people of other Christian denominations?
This is a book that is probably one of the widest of the books I've written, I think, because it's about the history of what God did, and then the history of what the devil did,
right,
and then following those two streams through history.
Right.
The first two people to read the book, back in the first edition, it was really fun because I got actual people telling me this. One person said, my 4-year-old was able to read the book.
Wow.
And then another lady came in, and she was 94. So I had 4 to 94, some of the first people to read the book.
Wow.
And it was understandable to both of them.
Yeah.
The idea is, I really believe, Pastor Bill, that if you're going to tell somebody something and you use big words, you may not really understand what you're saying. But if you use regular words that anybody can understand, that shows whether or not you know what you're talking about.
So much like Jesus, used the regular illustrations, didn't talk above anybody's head, and like the Bible, we're able to understand it at every age. So that's wonderful. I'm going to give you a couple opportunities, but as we go on in the program. But if people want the book, how do they get a hold of it?
Very easy. You just go to www.chick.com and then click on search and start writing to the Catholic Church, Give Us the Bible. Or you can simply go to chick.com/Bible, and all my books appear right there. It's really easy to find them. They're on a carousel.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, we'll repeat that before the program ends. So tell me, what caused you to write this book in the first place?
Well, first, I'm not I wasn't educated as a person who favors one version over another or anything like that. I went to Pacific Christian College, which is now called Hope International University. I was a top Greek student and went right into advanced Greek, tested right into advanced Greek at Fuller Seminary. I got my Master of Divinity in Theology when Debbie and I, my wife and I, both got our 3 years of Summer Institute of Linguistics. So she got her bachelor's as well, and we got our the full training to be Bible translators, and ultimately going to head to Papua New Guinea. That was our original goal. And I was fully trained to be a minister. I was ordained back in 1987. I had a complete different direction from where I am now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, sure.
So over research, a person came to our church, and I was a worship leader for about 15 years.
Okay.
In different churches, mainly in one.
Yeah.
Playing guitar. And there was a brother here named Ron Rockney at Chick who came to our church, and God just put a burden on him to pray for me.
Oh, wow.
And he told the pastor, I don't know who that guy is, but I got to pray for this guy.
You're right.
And he knew the pastor. So, but he started praying for me, and then we started talking, and he asked me a simple question. He said, if God did something right the first time, why does he need to do it a second? At the time, I was pushing the New King James Bible. I'd given it a good 10 years of my life. I really poured myself into the New King James, into the text behind it, the Hodges Farstad Greek text, and I was working through all this kind of stuff and working through the different manuscripts. And I started checking up history. And at the same time, believe it or not, there was a Catholic family that was trying to bring me into the Catholic Church.
Oh, boy.
And so we had talked one night. We actually talked all the way through the night. This lady was very dedicated. Her brother was a Jesuit priest, and we were, there's a whole lot of conversations we had. And so I just started doing research, praying like crazy, and getting book after book after book. But pretty soon, the research started to come together to where they dovetailed. Catholicism and the Bible version thing crossed each other. Like a dovetail joint on a guitar. Little analogy there. And what happened was I realized, okay, who is this guy, Carlo Maria Martini, this Jesuit priest, and how come he is one of the people in charge of the Bible for the Protestants? What's going on here? So I started researching further and further and digging more and more until finally I started asking some crazy questions. And as I did, it started just unraveling my life. Wow. Yeah. I finally got to a place in November 30th, 1998, to cut this short. I started in 1991 on this quest. By November 30th, I just said, God, you brought me to yourself in 1980 and 1972. I said, did you really do this? You really did preserve your words? And this King James Bible actually is your preserved words? I mean, I got all these degrees and letters after my name and all this linguistic study, and I got such a strong yes. I cried for the next 24 hours. I bought $400 worth of new Bibles for my 5 kids, my wife, and me. Boy. And got and started again with all the doubts still floating in my mind, all these other things. And then, but I started talking to my friend Ron, who worked at Chick Publications. And so I sent him different things I was finding him, and he was sticking them in his Battle Cry newsletter, without a byline or anything. So nobody knew who wrote it or anything, but I was just showing him what I found. Until finally, Jack Chick had told Ron, said, why don't you have him take those emails that people send us of these questions about the Bible and let him look them up and figure it out. Right. And so while I was a bilingual Spanish, English kindergarten teacher in Fontana, California, I was also answering these Bible version questions, some of which I had no idea about. And pretty soon, a bunch of things happened. A miracle happened to me to come here. If you go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ChickTracks, or just type David W. Daniels on YouTube. You'll find it that way. Okay. If you do that, hang on, a spam has just come in. I have to block it. Okay. Yeah. I know it happens all day. Yeah, right. If you go to there, you'll find the series called "You Don't Know Jack," and I tell you how God brought me to Chick Publications. Yeah. Along with Jack's life story, I'll tell you how I got here. But anyway, that's another direction. But from the time I came here, by the time I was here 2.5 years, we'd gotten over 59, 60 questions, and people stopped writing. And I asked Ron, what should I do? He said, make it into a book. That became Answers to Your Bible Version Questions. So now I was working at Chick. Jack and I are writing tracks together, starting with the Bible series with In the Beginning and working our way through. It actually was a Bible series. In the Beginning, It's Coming, Sin City, The Promise, about Abraham, and it goes on and on.
Sure.
As we're doing this, I started telling him, I feel like there's got to be a positive history of what God did and what really happened in history. I said, I feel like I'm walking around one of those outlines of a dead body. Because I love crime dramas.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like I'm walking around the outline of a dead body. Like the answer is all around, but inside that outline is what God really did and how He preserved His words and how it happened through history. And so I started asking some basic questions, and I found some pivot points in history. And if you look in the book, Did the Catholic Church Give Us the Bible? Those chapters have these pivot points. And you can see what the big event is, where things could go either way, and then they go that way, and that's where things moved.
Right.
So it starts at the very beginning, of course, with Satan literally as the first Bible corrector. Because, those first four words he said,
sure.
Yea, hath God said. Literally, God had spoken to Adam. Adam had spoken to Eve because Eve wasn't yet made, and Eve believed what Adam said, but what she should have done right then, and that's why she's called deceived, she didn't go back to her husband and say, honey, is this really what God said? Because I got this snake talking to me.
You're right.
But
that's right.
It didn't happen that way.
Uh-huh.
She was persuaded like most people in the world are. The devil hits right into our hearts and our minds and gets us to doubt. There are 4 steps that happen. Confusion, yes, God said. Doubt, I don't know if God said. Then there becomes disbelief. I don't think God said after all. And 4th is rebellion. I'm going to go my own way and figure it out for myself.
Right.
That sounds like the route of textual criticism, but nonetheless, that is what happens, and that's how it's happened since the garden.
Sure.
So this book now shows the history with these pivot points of how God gave the word, and then the devil did not sit on his hands.
Right.
Right? Pastor Bill, you will not say that you have ever seen the devil sit on his hands and say, oh, well, those Christians got that word of God. I guess I can't do anything
No,
now.
he doesn't relax.
No, he never does, because he knows his time is short.
Right.
He knows it's limited. Even though it'll be really short in the tribulation, it's short now, and he knows it's a limited time.
That's right.
It is, and he's got so much time because he knows some things are absolutely set, because the Bible talks about the scripture in heaven. There's this book in heaven. There's some timeline, and Satan's seen it, according to Daniel and some other verses I could show you. But the bottom line is he knows there are certain events that absolutely have to take place. He just wants to turn them.
Right.
Because he's so proud, he believes he can do that, which, of course, he's a creation trying to pull over the Creator. But, that's part of the pride.
Yes.
Look at all the people that are trying to correct God now.
Right.
So we have 2 streams through history then. The history of what God did with God's people and what the devil did with basically everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That forms the corpus of this book.
Right.
And it just takes you down these 2 streams. And Jack, I gave Jack what I wanted him to do. I told him from this when I was a textbook manager at Real Honda Bookstore in Whittier years before, I told him that I'd found this book, The Unbearable History of Philosophy Made Lighter, and it used these pictures in the midst of a real narrative to kind of pull the people along,
right,
with basic pictures. And so I gave him the stuff, and I floated it to the leadership here, and they said it's a great idea, and Jack did it. I gave him what I wanted, and he drew these pictures in. And so this progression keeps you going. You can see what's happening and feel what's happening and read what's happening and follow it in the scriptures, and it gives you a lot of things in there. And
yes,
it follows a chronological history right up to now.
Yes, and I like beside the narrative, there are a lot of illustrations, and Jack Chick is such a great artist. I know years ago when I was my family grew up. I grew up in the church, in the Presbyterian church, and we went to family church camp. And somebody was passing around Jack Chick's book, "This Was Your Life,"
Yes.
And I was about 13 or 14, and when I remember looking at the illustrations, reading the thing, and it literally scared the hell out of me. It's just really, just the thought of facing death and facing judgment, but it didn't quite wake me up. Unfortunately, I wasn't, I continued kind of in darkness because nobody really explained the gospel to me till I was about 20. But
Right.
I'll never forget that track, that all those images stood out, and it was a seed that God
Yeah.
planted. So I love the illustrations, and of course, like you say, it's kind of just glides the reader through the book, beginning to end. What do you think are the main points of this book?
Well, the first starts with a short story history of the Bible.
Right.
And one of the things it does, after starting from the Garden of Eden and taking us through to how God first gives his words to Moses, and what it's like to have scriptures and how they get passed down. How did God do it? And scripture verses are right there, so you can see it for yourself. Nobody can fool you.
Right.
You can never be fooled again about what God did.
Right.
And I give you right to you the Sefer Torah and the scroll, and I was kept in the ark, but now they used that scroll, kept by the ark, but they used that scroll and they copied from that scroll, and every king was supposed to copy from that scroll, but we know a few of them did at least. And they passed that down, and the Levites were in charge of the scriptures, how that passed down,
Right.
The incredible, how ultimately it went from the Levite tribe and passed down. I have not been able to prove if there was a tribal designation of the Masoretes, but I'm guessing they're Levi, because only Levi was, of all the 12 tribes, was entrusted with the scriptures, and it's hard for me to believe that God didn't do that,
Yes.
since he said so, and
Right.
he's God, and I'm not.
Right. Sure.
So, yeah, so it comes to the Masoretes, and then we get this, how they pass down the scriptures, and we still have them. Nobody can really fight unless they try to go to the Septuagint, which was made in the first century. It's another book I wrote, Did Jesus Use the Septuagint, or on the YouTube. It's called, Was There a BC Septuagint? I did a series on the YouTube channel. You can see that under the playlist. You can see that the Bible, as God revealed it to the Jews, is pretty much settled. You really can't mess with it.
Right.
If you have the text. You can't say, oh, there's 1,000 variations. No, there's the Keri and the Ketiv. There's the things that it reads like this, but it means this, and there's notes on it and stuff, and the King James Bible reflects that. We got that. Okay, you can fight over that all you want to, but it doesn't take you very far. It doesn't take you very far at all. But the New Testament, where the doctrines of Christ are, that's where the big battle is. And so that's where the book moves along to. But first, it goes through all the books of the Old Testament, the New Testament, give you a quick overview of the 66 books, and tell you, how do you get here? What are these books? How did God set up his book? Because if the devil's going to fight it, there has to be something he's fighting.
Right.
When I talked to a Presbyterian when I was walking to class at Fuller Seminary, you'll like this because your Presbyterian background.
Sure.
And I was asking him. I said I was 84. It was fall of '84. I'd only been a repentant believer for 4 years, and I said, now it's only been 4 years for me. And I've only read through the Bible 4 times. How many times do you guys have to read through it to become a minister?
Oh boy.
And he said, and Daniel, my roommate, said, we don't have to read through it at all. I said, what?
Right.
No, you saw that thing over there, that Bible content exam. All you have to do is just you study for, cram for, and pass the Bible content exam, and that's the only Bible that you really have to know.
Right.
I said, and I asked him, how can you preach from the Bible if you haven't read it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable. I'll tell you the truth. Having grown up Presbyterian, I went to a Presbyterian college, not because it was a church college, but because the education there was outstanding. It was a small liberal arts college. Well, years later, I left that school after a couple of years and went into performing. And I had a career that way for 30 years. Thank God I found the Lord a year into that. And like you, led worship in churches for actually a lot of years as I was being led into what I'm doing now in the pastoral ministry. But between the years I was in entertainment, or when I kind of retired from entertainment and was moving into pastoral ministry, I had to get a job, and I filled out an application at a local store here, a regional store. And when I went in for the interview, the guy that was interviewing me looked at my resume, and he said, "Oh, I see you've gone to Grove City College." And I said, "Oh, did you go there?" He said, I said, "Did you attend there, or did you graduate there?" And he said, "Oh no, that's where I had that's where I was sent on my mission." He was Mormon.
Uh-huh.
And the Mormons send people into these so-called Christian colleges, because they know that these kids don't know the Word, and they can deceive them, which is the whole issue with what Satan does with the Bible, period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we start with the short history of the Bible. Then after that, we talk about those northern and southern streams. The northern stream from Antioch, which is apostolic and preserved, and the Alexandrian stream, which is polluted and is apostate. And those two streams are covered in there. Then we go to the Caesars change costumes, where I start showing how the Caesars switched to the popes, and I give the history of how the Roman Catholic religion forms, and how Constantine moves that and becoming the beginning of the Roman Church in chapter 4. And you see what they're doing and how they're forming their own Bible, and they're trying to do it in order to push their own doctrines. And that's why they need the Septuagint, which they put into Latin. Then we have the light shines in the Dark Ages. We jump to starting with John Wycliffe and the making of the printing press, and we get to Erasmus and Tyndale and beautiful things till we come to the summation of that, which is chapter 6, Reformation and revenge, because the Jesuits are not happy about it. The Jesuits were given permission to try and turn the whole world toward the Pope, and by any means necessary. They're kind of like, that's where the CIA comes from. The CIA, the OSS, the SS troops are going backwards through Germany. All that stuff, they learned it from the Jesuit order. The King of English Bibles, so then chapter 8 becomes the Jesuits' attack, and it shows what they did and how they worked their way into the colleges, into the universities, and started destroying Germany and then working into England. And that's where we come to Westcott and Hort. But then the book shifts because we had so many Spanish speakers wanting this and nobody else was doing it, so I did it myself. I went through all these foundation documents and histories and everything like crazy, and went over to a guy named Valera. There's Reina and Valera, two monks, and what happened with them and what happened with the Spanish Bible, and go into a lot of detail. And that brings us into Bible translations, which is a lot of my background, and talked about how they started to push people toward Rome, ultimately using Bibles. And that's also in a book of mine. I have a big book about this that goes into a great deal, called Why They Changed the Bible, One World Bible for One World Religion. And I even dramatized it. It's even an audio book on Audible. If you guys want to hear that acted out, I do that. It took 6 weeks to read.
Oh, wow.
That was hard.
Yeah, right.
Chapter 10 then was after all the things that happened to Valera's Bible and how they kept perverting it and changing it and messing it up. Then chapter 10 is Valera's vision restored, and how God used a guy named Gomez. And I'm just amazed because of all the people talking about Bible versions and in Spanish and stuff.
Right.
One person has been so humble. When I showed him what was wrong with the text he sent me, he fixed it. Other people doubled down on their stuff, where I showed him the information and gave him the backup, and he fixed it. I'm not even a Spanish speaker, but I'm not even a native Spanish speaker. Spanish speaker.
Right.
But I showed him some evidence. He fixed that, and he said, "You made it a better Bible." And it was that humble attitude has persisted, which is why at Chick Publications, it's the only Spanish Bible we push.
Right.
Again, the attitude, I know it means a lot. I have a bilingual one we sell here too, which is great. Then we go to chapter 11. Look where we are today, and it shows you what it's like and how they push and they kick you out if you believe in the King James Bible. And I tell about the 6 steps that happened all the way from the non-believers into the universities, into the religious universities, into the conservative universities, into the Bible colleges, into the churches.
Right. Well, we're talking with David Daniels, who wrote "Did the Catholic Church Give Us the Bible?" And David, we're running out of time way too quickly today. It's been such a scholarly interview and informative. But if you could again tell people how they can get this book and other books that you've written once again.
There you go. The simplest way, chick.com/Bible.
Okay.
All my books are listed there. There's a carousel there, and you can click on it, and it'll tell you about each book individually. And also, we have our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@ChickTracks. And we have I did over 390 vlogs, plus we have other videos, including our Light of the World movie that we did.
Well, it is a great book. It's beautifully put together from cover to cover. And I really highly encourage folks to get on that website and take a look at the various books written by David Daniels, and especially the one we're talking about today, Did the Catholic Church Give Us the Bible? David, it's been such a great pleasure talking with you. And, man, I love your ministry, and your, man, as I say, you're a Greek scholar. That's all Greek to me, as they say, But it's been such a pleasure having you all listening. Hey, God bless you all. This is Bill Walker standing in for Tim and Jesus. As I said at the beginning of the program, Jesus is here, but Tim's out of town. He'll be back next week. God bless you all. Have a great week.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Jesus and Tim in Las Vegas. If you don't have the assurance that you're going to heaven when you die, you need to repent of your sin right now. Say, Jesus, I'm a sinner. Forgive me for my sin. Come into my heart right now. And if you're on the verge of suicide, go to fullyfreefilms.com, fullyfreefilms.com, and watch the movie Exit. I hope to see you here, there, or in the air. God bless you.